Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Liturgy entitled 93696, and I'm just gonna cut straight to the chase with this one today, folks. Holy shit, this was weird, this was wild, this was intense. What the ever-loving fuck did I just listen to? Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm asking you to tell me. For realsies, folks. Honestly, I could probably end the review right here, right now, with just that description. What the fuck did I just listen to? Out of 5, I don't know, you tell me. And it would be accurate. It would fit. I'm sure even all the fine folk in Liturgy would understand and would appreciate that. Because I don't know, man. I really don't know this time around. I haven't been this stumped by an album in a while. I'm not sure where to begin describing this thing, but I'm going to do my best. 93696 is the 6th studio album from this self-proclaimed transcendental black metal crew, the brainchild of one Hela Ravena Hunt Hendrix, hailing from Brooklyn, New York. Now, Liturgy have always been responsible for some pretty challenging, demanding, puzzling, complex, dare some even argue pretentious, experimental, and avant-garde black metal tunery through records like Aesthetica, The Artwork, Hack, Origin of the Alimonies. However, I'm going to go out on a limb here and suggest that 93696 is Liturgy's most insane and ambitious record to date, their most emotional, their most spiritual, their most profound, their most unique sonically and conceptually. I think that's something Liturgy themselves would definitely agree with, as they write, 93696 is the purest synthesis of the diversity of Liturgy, a sprawling and monumental double album exploring religion, cosmic love, the feminine, the metamorphosis while manifesting the ecstatic with breathtaking grandeur. Continuing, 93696 is a number derived from the religions of Christianity and Thelema, a numerological representation of heaven or a new eon for civilization. Hunt Hendrix composed the album as an exploration of eschatological possibility, divided by the 4 laws that govern her own interpretation of heaven, Halogen. Those 4 laws being sovereignty, hierarchy, emancipation, and individuation. These laws constitute the 4 movements of 93696, which act as dramas all their own within the framework of the record. And as far as the music is concerned, it's a non-stop bombardment of what the fuckery and clusterfuckian bullshit. I mean, you've got cold, in-your-face black metal aggression and mayhem, you've got incomprehensible screaming and shouting, and other vocal theatrics and dynamics that can all be described as either operatic, ominous, or angelic. Tons of lush, cinematic, orchestral bombast. Beats and transitions that wouldn't be out of place on a hip-hop or even a trap record. Glitchy breakdowns and beatdowns that jar and shock the senses. It's angular and demented and schizophrenic, but also expansive and immersive and genuinely heart-wrenching at times. It's like all the most provocative and powerful elements of lingua ignota, black midi, full of hell and Svalbard thrown into a blender and force-fed to you over the span of 90 minutes. And this is a great time to start talking about what is inarguably this album's biggest issue. Holy shit, this is overstuffed and overwhelming as fuck. While I truly do admire the artistry and ambition of this record, it is ultimately just too much of a sensory overload for me. Dictionary definition of ear fatigue. Like, I barely got through this thing in its entirety on my first listen. I had to take a break near the end. And on my second and third listen, I took quite a few breaks. Hell, I started treating those breaks like they were intermissions at a Broadway musical. I stood up, went for a walk, went to the bathroom. And this isn't to say that there isn't anything of value or importance on this record, that there isn't anything exciting or entertaining, because there is. But getting to all of that is much more of a challenge on this album than it was on Hack or Origin of the Alimonies or The Artwork. And as a result, on those aforementioned repeat listens, not only did I find myself taking breaks, I found myself skipping portions of this record that I found slightly more irritating or obnoxious. Take, for instance, the double whammy of Daily Bread and Degeneration, which actually opens this record. I find myself skipping over a good chunk of Daily Bread because it relies so heavily on this very repetitive and monotonous kind of synthesizer and keyboard work that is supposed to be really spooky and haunting and atmospheric, but instead it just kind of feels like a drill tone being slowly drilled into my brain. As the track begins to transition into Degeneration, I am treated to some really cool and erratic choral work, some wild vocal chanting. It kind of sounds like a Christian hymn gone nuts. And I do love the total onslaught of symphonic, avant-garde black metal chaos that I am treated to throughout the majority of Degeneration's runtime. But I'm not down with those glitchy breaks, which just feel abrupt and unnecessary, and I'm really super not down with the total out-of-nowhere transition into, like, metal, trap, rhythmic fusion shit. Like, it sounds like something that Backwash or Ghostmain might have put together in their very early years, but then immediately rejected and cut from an album. Then there's Ananon, which for a bit has a lot of weight and power and momentum behind it, thanks to some frantic, crazed, avant-garde black metal destruction, followed up by some more epic grooves and riffs that honestly bring to mind a hypothetical universe where Mastodon does experimental black metal. But this is nearly derailed entirely, not once, but twice in the song, in the middle and near the very end, by some more seemingly random glitchy bullshit. It honestly sounds like you're playing like an old video game and your Xbox just fucking crashed. Then there's stuff like Red Crown 2, Angel of Sovereignty, Angel of Emancipation, Angel of Individuation, Halogen 2 Reprise, which are pretty, I suppose, but they're also kind of aimless and don't have much function or purpose outside of being pretty and maybe giving you just a moment to catch your breath and get your shit together. I can very honestly say I didn't listen to any of these tracks in their entirety on repeat listens, and if it were up to me, all of them would be cut from the record immediately. On that note, I should say this album doesn't need to be 90 minutes long. On top of cutting the interlude, there's definitely a little bit of fat you could cut off of every single song on this record, especially on the album's title track 9396 and Antigone 2, both of which together clock in at nearly 30 minutes long, 15 minutes individually, taking up nearly a third of this record. And they don't fucking need to. That said, ironically, these two numbers are probably the best on the entire album, alongside Kayla and Before I Knew the Truth. These four songs are still packed with all kinds of weird, wild, crazy, insane, and intense nonsense, but they're also the most focused, the most cohesive, the most concise. I'm genuinely so conflicted that I don't know what score to give this thing. I've honestly no fucking clue. I almost, unironically, want to do what I joked about doing in the very beginning and just go, what the fuck did I just listen to out of 5? That unironically feels the most appropriate to do right now. I'll say this, whatever feelings you have about Liturgy going into this album are very likely going to be amplified once you've left it. If you love Liturgy, you will love this album, and if you hate Liturgy, you will hate this album. And if you're kind of indifferent, you're probably just going to remain indifferent. It is to metal what something like Tenet is to film, what something like BioShock Infinite is to video games. It's occasionally great, but it's also just way too goddamn much, and I'm not really sure how to feel after having left it. Maybe I will lean one way or another in the near future, but for now, I'm mixed. I don't know what I score this. But I do know that this is a very unique experience. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.